What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about another horror movie because Halloween is slowly approaching and we're in the month of September. And I love watching horror movies around this time of year. You'll notice that as long as my channel's been around, September and October, I always review a ton of horror content. And I wanted to go back and revisit this movie because I feel like over the years, this movie has been very highly regarded. I watched it a long time ago once and didn't remember very much about it, but over the years, in a lot of people's lists for favorite horror movies or underrated horror movies, I see this one pop up a lot. And to be quite honest, I didn't remember much about it from my initial viewing, so I was really excited to watch it this time around because I felt like it was going to be pretty much a new viewing for me because of how little I remembered. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is The Descent. The Descent is directed by Neil Marshall. After a tragic accident, six friends reunite for a caving expedition. Their adventure soon goes horribly wrong when a collapse traps them deep underground and they find themselves pursued by bloodthirsty creatures. As their friendships deteriorate, they find themselves in a desperate struggle to survive the creatures and each other. So I was really excited to watch this because, as I said, been a long time since I'd seen this. Pretty much was like a new watch for me because of how much I forgot about it. And this movie was a ton of fun. It's very brutal. I really like the way that it's shot. The creature design is really fantastic. And I don't think it's perfect by any means. I wouldn't regard it as like one of the best horror films that I've ever seen, but I think that it's really great, and I'm excited to talk about it with you today. So at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Sarah, who at the beginning of the film suffers a horrible, horrible tragedy. And we jump forward a year later after this tragedy has occurred, and she is meeting up with her group of friends. And this friend group that she spends time with, they always go on these crazy expeditions together, whether it's whitewater rafting, intense hiking trips, exploring these caves. They do all of these crazy things together and they decide to do this expedition of this very specific cave. And so at the beginning of the movie, we get the introduction to these characters and kind of how they operate and understanding their relationships. And they go to this cave and everything is seemingly normal at first. They get down inside of the cave, they start exploring it, and something happens while they're in there where a part of the cave gets closed off and they're not sure how they're going to be able to get out. Simultaneously, as they're trying to find their way out, one of them sees this creature inside the cave. And the entirety of the film is this group of friends trying to escape this cave while also hiding from these creatures who are trying to kill them. So as I said, I thought this movie was really fantastic. It's not perfect by any means, but there's so much to like about it. For starters, I really like the setting of this film and the attention to detail in the design of the cave and how claustrophobic everything is. From very early on, before the creatures are introduced, you get a sense of the space and how tight and confined and just how horrifying it would be to be put in this situation. And there's a lot of attention to detail in the blocking of shots to just kind of showcase how tight and condensed this space is. And I really like that. I feel like I've watched all different kinds of horror movies in my life. I've never really seen one in this type of an environment before where the danger is these creatures coming out to get you, but it's also the dangers of being in this unexplored cave. There's a scene early on, not even involving the creatures, where the characters have to get from one point to another in the cave, and the way they have to scale it is super dangerous. It just does a really great job of building up the anxiety and really creating that tension for you as a viewer. So not only is the threat of these creatures looming in the back of your mind, but you also have all of the obstacles of exploring this unexplored area that, as we learn throughout the film, no one has really explored before. I think all the actresses in this movie do a really solid job, especially like expressing their terror. I really like how natural the chemistry is between the characters in the movie. Early on in the film, it's not like we get a ton of exposition about who these people are, but we can feel the years of friendship between them and kind of how all the dynamics between the different girls work, which is something I really like. I think, character character building for me is something that's so incredibly important, and that's not always necessarily due to like really intense backstories. I just recently discussed Ridley Scott's first Alien film, and in that movie, they do such a great job at the beginning establishing the rapport between the characters just in that simple dining sequence and just learning who they are as people and how they interact. And I think the director of this film does a really great job in the first 15 minutes, really building up that chemistry so that you do care when they're put in danger. Love the practical effects of the creatures in this. They're goopy and grimy and gross looking, and you can start to build a story in your mind of how they got there. And we learn little bits of information through what the characters are seeing, like they're blind and so they can't see because they're underground, and so everything is through what they can hear, and they have really attentive hearing to where, because their vision is gone, they've had to become more perceptive through their hearing. And I really like that, and the way that that information is conveyed to you. It's not through overt expositional dialogue, it's just through characters recognizing something and adapting to that. And I really like how natural the story feels. My biggest qualm with this movie is sometimes the editing is too chaotic to where you kind of lose which character is in peril and which moments. And I've seen some people argue, like, you're trapped in a confined space. Obviously, this is what it's going to be like. But I think the directors could pay a little bit more attention to detail at whether that be shot composition or lighting or something to really give us who is in peril, because there were moments where I was completely lost as to who was in danger or what character was in threat of dying, which makes it difficult for the suspense to hold completely. I was always on the edge of my seat because I found the movie to be very thrilling and very compelling, but I would have liked it more to know which character was in peril in which specific scenes. I do feel like some of the sequences get a little bit repetitive when the characters are in danger. Obviously, you're in this confined space, so there's only so much that you can do, but I think between that and getting lost with which character was it at which moment made it difficult for me to be invested completely. The ending was okay. I feel like a lot of people think it's really shocking or surprising, but honestly, I've seen this done in movies before, so I kind of rolled my eyes when the credits rolled. I was like, okay, I get what you were going for, but I was far more interested with the trauma that the lead character has experienced. And I think they do a good job going back to it throughout the film through experiences that she's having and the danger she's being put in, and kind of recollecting on the trauma she's experienced and reliving that simultaneously. I wish that was more of the payoff than where they go, which was a little bit more formulaic in my opinion. But regardless of those qualms, I still think this movie is a fun time. And if you're looking for a fun kind of creature feature movie with a lot of gore and suspense, you're really going to enjoy The Descent. So have you seen The Descent? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was a ton of fun. Despite it having its fair share of flaws, I still really had a good time with it. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.